Hi Rob, how you doing?
I'm good, Andy. You?
Yes, really good, thanks. So we've got Rob Pollard on the podcast today, the owner and CEO of Lightbox Digital, and we're here to talk about why people matter in digital and aspects of making digital human, basically. So my first question, Rob, just to kick us off, is what do we mean when we say why people matter?
Yeah, I think I think this extends beyond marketing, but I know we're talking about marketing now. But I think people matter in all aspects of life because when we focus on what matters to people and telling stories, that's when deep connections happen, and I think that's what really everyone's trying to achieve on some level. You've got the larger brands that are really trying to kind of tap into people's subconsciousness, but also, as a small SME, you are trying to make yourself stand out and be a little bit different from your competitors. So the more you can do that, the better. But you've only got to look at what's happening at the moment. And I think the positive thing to come out of the current situation is the sense of community and connection,
Yeah,
and togetherness, which in some ways, had been lost a little bit. It was all kind of head down, trying to, on the rat run, trying to, do X, Y, and Z. But ultimately, everyone's realizing that those are the things that matter. Human interaction, engagement, togetherness, community. It's all really important stuff.
mm,
But I think, again, it's evidence in marketing as well, evident in marketing because you've got brands really leveraging the current climate as well to tell real stories again, rather than just push features and benefits and products at us.
yeah,
You're seeing ads on TV full of home videos that people and how they're adapting to this new,
yeah.
temporary change in life. And ultimately, those that kind of content it resonates with people, whether it makes you smile, laugh, feel sad, that you remember it.
Yeah.
And I think, just to bring it back to something that's quite simple to understand, it's the film industry is very similar. That what I would class as the features and benefits films are all full of impressive effects, explosions, but actually not much substance behind it. You
Mm,
know, you look at franchises like Transformers. It's all loud and shouty and all the rest, which is great for a quick fix of entertainment. But I think films that truly connect to you and touch people are the ones that are character driven and story
yeah,
driven.
100%.
And I think, I mean, two of the best films that I've seen recently, like, probably completely overlooked them in the past because they don't sound exciting, but it's called Green Book, and Once More is the other one. There's no effects, there's no, it's just pure character driven storytelling, and those are the ones that you remember. And I think the same applies in marketing when you center your approach around your customer and you start to think, it forces you to start to think differently rather than looking inward out.
Yeah.
Um, and you start tailoring campaigns and your approach as to what matters to your customer.
Mm, great. When you're working with clients at your agency, how do you maintain that human aspect in a digital world?
Yeah, absolutely. I think before you start anything really in marketing, whether it's ideas for a campaign, whether it's overcoming a challenge or building a new product, whatever it is, it's important that you have to establish who your customers are.
Mm,
And for us at Lightbox, that always starts with a workshop of some shape or form. And a key part of those workshops is always customer personas.
yeah.
Now, I know, you can get very elaborate with all of this. You can start using Experian and data scraping to generate, who your personas are, and really go to town on it. But I think in its simplest form, it's just kind of sitting back and asking a few questions. So, who is your customer, or your ideal customer base? What motivates them? what they value, how you should speak to them. Because when you start defining those personas, it really starts to shape, tactics around how you take your products and services to market. But it also helps you start to generate campaign narratives and ideas that satisfy their motivations. I mean, how can you make their life easier? How do you tell stories that tap into what their frustration is or the problem that you're solving for them? And to be honest with you, I rarely come across an SME. Some do, and some have got really kind of good data around it, and it makes our life easier to kind of kick off and start the projects. But ultimately, we still stress test those as well, and it's important just to see if they're still relevant, because things change. Things change rapid these days. So it's always just good to just check in and make sure that that the personas you have are still your personas. And then I think once you've established those, digital is simply a medium to create and deliver those ideas. I think sometimes because digital can be so instant, we can get, again, it comes back to that features and benefits approach. We can get caught up in, activating something rapidly without actually thinking it through. Whereas if you just take a step back and take time to think about it, that so many better ideas come along than possibly your original one. Yeah. But it's also to say that digital is not the only channel. Offline marketing can really support digital activity as well. Yeah. It's a bit like, if you gave 5 different artists a subject or a concept, all of them will deliver a piece of art, but all of them will look very different and possibly use different materials. So I think it's always starting with the challenge that you're trying to overcome, or the audience group that you're trying to get a key message out to, and how you deliver that. Maybe utilizing multiple channels. Yeah. And I think as well, just bringing it back to the human aspect, customer experience is something that we always look at. A lot of our work is web based, and we're building websites and e-commerce platforms, etc. But if you just take a step back and we run an exercise called How Can We Wow? And it's a really simple exercise that you can do as a team, but essentially you draw, 2 large circles, one inside the other, and you put down everything in the center circle that your customer expects, just a real basic level of service that they expect, and to be satisfied. And actually, it's quite frightening when you start doing that as to what people do expect from just an average service. And then if you then use the outer circle to start putting down ideas of how you can wow them, at what different points in the customer journey can you really add value or make a difference to their experience, you get some cracking ideas that come out of that. And some can be a bit pie in the sky, but equally it sometimes triggers ideas around what products you could build to help deliver that, or it could be something that you don't have in your product portfolio at the moment, but it really forces you to innovate, which is something that works really well in marketing. It might be building a calculator or a tool or some sort that customers can engage with, and actually it helps them in their life or their role. So I just think things like that really brings it back to what people want or need.
Great. And with that exercise, with the wow exercise, would you typically do that with the client, or would you do that kind of separately and in-house?
No, we do it with the client, or more importantly, if it can be a team, a team of people, or if it's something that we're looking to do, we'll always get everybody in, because you may have you have people doing brilliant things in any business, and you don't always know what ideas they have unless it's facilitated like that, because everybody's different, aren't they? Some people might be quite shy around coming forward, but that creates a platform for it. So
Yeah, I think some of the best ideas I've had is when somebody doesn't know much about digital,
Yeah,
and they come in and just say, "What I've seen this elsewhere, and can I do this on our website?" And you go, "Yeah, that's a really good idea." And sometimes you're really stuck in digital, aren't you? And
yeah,
when you actually bring in a less digital person, they bring in the human aspect.
yeah, and it can be focused around, again, it's like digital gives you so many tools and like diff and even third party tools that you can use, and you can kind of get sucked into that a little bit sometimes, and it
Yeah,
just, if you just bring it back down to its, a simplistic problem and a challenge that needs to be overcome, I think
yeah,
you get some great things out of it.
awesome. And what sort of goals and objectives do you set around and making it human? Is there any way to measure this kind of activity, especially around
Yeah, I mean,
brands?
yeah, I think first and foremost, it's, before you start anything in terms of, whether it's a campaign or any kind of marketing activity, you have got to establish your goal and your objectives. And I think it's really important to understand the difference between goals and objectives, because the lines can get blurred to a degree. So, I mean, a goal is really a desired result that you want to achieve, and that can be a broad, it can be quite broad and top
Mm.
level. But an objective, that defines the specific measurable actions that a team must implement to achieve the overall goal, and those are the things that are measurable. So I think if you're bringing it back to how people are interacting with whatever you're looking to launch or create, I think there's a number of things that you can do there, and some of them will be data and targets,
Mm.
but some of them can also be softer things. It can be measuring how many people are talking about what it is that you're doing,
Yeah,
and they don't necessarily directly lead to um, sales or inquiries or downloads, which is always the kind of metrics that everybody is measuring. But I think there's a lot to be said for it, because I think when you are implementing a marketing campaign, I think some of the key things to remember is patience. I think a
yeah,
lot of the time we forget about that, and we can launch something, and if it's not delivering within a day, it's like, oh, what can we
yeah,
change? We need to do something else, and it's not really the approach. I mean, the fundamentals of marketing still, digital's instant, but the fundamentals of marketing still need to shine through, which is, if anything, it's about resilience, creativity, but most importantly, consistency and patience,
mm,
because nothing's going to happen overnight. You might launch a Facebook campaign and it gets very little traction within the first week, but to kind of U-turn and start switching it off, that's not the way to achieve
yeah,
success, because your audience may not be in a position right now to buy, but they may be in a month's time. So if you just keep that consistency going, and that driving that message,
yeah,
when they are ready, that you're going to be front of mind, and I think that gets missed in digital sometimes.
mm.
Now, I'm not saying that you just blindly carry on like blowing money down the drain, but there needs to be some sort of logical approach. But I think people, they're looking to change things too quickly at
Mm.
times.
Yeah, definitely.
You've got to have that resilience.
Great. Um, so what brands are kind of inspiring you right now, and what are they doing right?
I think, yeah, this is going to this is going to be really strange and a weird one for an Apple hardware user. Now, I'm not an Apple fanboy. I've got an Android phone and all of that, but I think their hardware, etc., is really, really good, or
Yeah.
has been the best, in the last decade. But in recent years, Microsoft has really
Mm.
impressed me, because here you've got a brand that had actually become a bit of a dinosaur. If you think about them as a tech leader, way back, they've become a bit of a dinosaur and got left behind in many ways. And what they've done in recent years is completely reinvent themselves.
Yeah.
And I think the main driver of that was an internal culture shift to create and innovate products that people want, not what Microsoft wants. And I think again that comes back to that people element. They've also shifted from an introverted culture of backwards compatibility that actually can hamstring innovation. And one of the big things that they started to do a couple of years ago was embrace cloud innovation and cross-platform collaboration as well, rather than trying to do everything themselves and monopolize things. So and more recently, they were one of the first to react to the COVID, which digitally connects everybody and broke that barrier. Which that's probably something they'd never have done 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's quite an interesting one because it's not an all-inspiring brand, but actually I think to reinvent yourself to the degree that they have and be involved in automated vehicles, or all of this different stuff, even the distribution of food, they've got a kind of finger in every pie now for the right reasons as well.
Yeah.
And then another one is Just Eat, and I think
is that because of recent times though?
Yeah, well, recent times order intake. I think they've been a pivotal brand in everybody's life of recent. But I think that as more competition entered the marketplace in that field of getting food to people's doorsteps without them going anywhere, through like Deliveroo and Uber Eats. I think Just Eat have just absolutely smashed it in terms of getting into the hearts and minds of the customer, because their Did Somebody Say concept. It's so it's so memorable, adaptable, fun. And in any kind of culture as well. So and across any media. I mean, I love their radio campaigns. You're driving along and they just make you chuckle. But I mean, if you think about where it all started last year, those initial first ads that they made me laugh. But I think where you look at almost a year on now, and it's got like more and more outrageous, and how it's evolved. It's quite it cracks me up. But I think when you're three, last year my 3-year-old was singing it, so I think that just demonstrates how successful that campaign has been for them, along with the rebrand, etc. But it's it's just that memorable moment, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Great. Just touching back on Microsoft, I completely agree that how they've reinvented themselves. I read at the start of the year, seems like a lifetime ago, but right at the start of this year, there was the wildfires across Australia.
Yeah.
And I think they're still having trouble, but during that time, Microsoft was quite reactive, and that they set a target of that year to become carbon neutral and emission neutral, and all their footprint they've ever made to be neutral. So they've not just kind of become a carbon neutral company. They've actually reduced every footprint they've ever made, which is incredible, really, isn't it?
No, it is. It's massive, and I think that'll be even true. Even more true after all of this, because I think people are kind of really. I mean, it's been happening for a while now, especially with the new generations that are coming through. But I think sustainability and being part of something that makes a difference, even on a brand level, is massive. I mean, even people like Airbnb, they've been. You can't not admire that brand, because what they've been doing over the last particularly over the last few years is it's not only building communities worldwide, redefining travel, involving people in their brand, creating those user stories and communities, and creating the platform for people to share. They're just 100% about the customer. I mean, even to the point where they've created new markets for businesses to, you know, manage Airbnb, properties, and it's mental. So I think the brands that are absolutely smashing it now are the ones that are, creating a greater reason for people to, to buy into them.
Great. So talking about UX and digital, and this can be kind of the human aspect or anything like that, but where would you point marketers to? Any books, podcasts, courses, or websites to make them really good in this area of marketing?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna come back to the content piece really. I think some of the best books for this. It's not a new book, but Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller.
Okay.
That really just focuses on how to go about that, and some of the concepts and frameworks to implement developing stories for your brand. We've got also Everybody Writes, so your go-to guide to creating ridiculously good content by Anne Handley, who's actually quite an influencer in the marketing world, but again, it's just concepts of how to structure content properly and how to create stories. So, and then we've got a good book around customer experiences is the 10 Principles Behind Great Customer Experiences by Matt Watkinson. Again, I think something that underpins all marketing, and that doesn't matter whether you're coming up with ideas for a campaign, it's always content. So if marketers can develop their writing skills and storytelling skills, or at least some theories behind that, I think it puts them in, coupled with creativity obviously, and looking at who your customers are, I think it puts you in a really good, strong place to be able to create great content.
Yeah.
Blogs that I like to follow, just covering different disciplines within digital really is so backlinko.com.
Yeah.
Brian Dean, SEO. He's the way he writes his content is brilliant, because it's actually really well structured and almost breaks it all like a larger concept down into smaller bite-sized chunks, which is massively helpful, particularly in terms of SEO, because you talk about on-site SEO, it can be there's many concepts that go into that, so that's a good one. neilpatel.com. So he covers all aspects of digital marketing. Has got some really good ideas. Similarly, his podcast I listen to quite a lot. Neil Patel and Eric Sue. It's called Marketing School. It's on Spotify, and that's great for like a quick kind of few minutes. They cover different topic every day, and they just give you they even talk about great tools to use for different things. And I've got some, I've had some little bang on nuggets of information out of that. So that's always worth a listen. And then you've got Copy Blogger for content marketing. That's a good blog. Again, just working on that kind of storytelling theme. You've got Smart, .com, which is more about internal culture and people.
Yeah.
Gaps.com, tracking successful online startups, so what they've done well and how to identify gaps in markets and things like that. And then Detailed.com, which is publishers of SEO strategies that have worked for some of the largest organizations. So they essentially do, the guys behind it do work on SEO for some of the the global companies. And that obviously they don't share what they're doing right now for them, but they share stuff that has worked in the past, which is always interesting, because some of those organizations are operating in very competitive arenas online. So, and then just as well as many UX accounts on Instagram. You've only got a keyword search on Instagram, you find loads of good stuff. But there's one account that I like that just kind of lightens everything up a bit, and it's a bit of fun that we can all relate to, and that's Marketing99Percent.
Okay, I haven't heard that one.
So basically,
there's some great ones in here, Rob.
Yeah, it's a cartoonist that it's all based around marketing. And it's just, we've all been there. Like you look at some of the cartoons, a bit like in the newspapers when they're commentating on what the government are doing, and it just makes you smile. So just
awesome. That's some really good ones. Just to shift gears a bit, so on a bit of a fun one. If you could place an ad anywhere in the world with any message on it, what would it be and what would it say?
I think at the moment it'd be written in the sky, and it'd just be simply "Stay at fucking home."
Yeah, that's a good one.
Because it's not a difficult concept to grasp, and it seems to be a worldwide problem.
Yeah. Do you think? I don't want to get too political, but do you think the digital strategy of the government has been pretty good, or? I think what we were saying earlier about kind of those real clips of people at home and things like that. I think there's the picture of the small, the kind of painting on the windscreen that somebody put on and the window. But I've seen a lot of the good message. But I think it's gained momentum, certainly. I think they could have possibly started reacting quicker, with some good content going out online. Obviously, it's difficult. It's a really difficult one because it's like all these things. Knowing what to do with all the uncertainties is, for the good of the people. And you talk about audience personas. You've got how many different audience groups those guys have got. I just wouldn't want to be in their shoes trying to do that. So it's all too easy to sit there and criticize. But actually, I think they did a decent job, and I think some of the user content that's coming out now is lovely. The clapping on a Thursday night. It just reinforces everything that's happening good in the world at the moment. And maybe they could have kind of orchestrated some of that to happen a little bit quicker, as maybe people actually saying why it's important to stay at home, because again, I don't think that message was coming through enough at the start, certainly. Yeah, great. Awesome. Where can people find you, and do you have any requests of the audience? There's our website,
lightboxdigital.co.uk. I'm on LinkedIn, /Rob-Pollard. I think those are the two best places at the moment. I think as a business owner, it's been a bit of a mad time now, because we've almost had to go through like this reaction part initially, where you're doing forecasting, financial modeling, and all of this kind of what I would say boring stuff. Team management and trying to keep everybody upbeat in a difficult time. And but I feel like certainly we have come to the end of it, and I think what it does allow is resource now to actually start doing some really proactive things around where we're at, which is great. We're coming out. I'd love to have got onto that straight away, but there was just too much to sort out. It was chaos then. I think now people have got to kind of rethink strategies and look at the comeback plan if they're not already kind of running at the moment. So I think that's one of the most important things that any marketeer or business owner could be doing now. I mean, the natural reaction is to switch everything off or stop. And to be fair, I think initially it was probably the right thing to do. I mean, you've got brands like Coca-Cola that have they've paused all their marketing because of a lack of ROI, and that's understandable, because everybody's in a different mindset at the moment. But I think as we start to come out of this and things, it's going to be a long time till it's all back to normal, and we're not even going to be, in terms of the economy, that could be, even longer. But I think the biggest thing that people can do is just try and stay visible, on some level, whether that's thought leadership, and you don't want to come across as drops, trying to sell and throw things at people, but equally there's still lots of opportunity to share ideas and get people together, and I think that's the best way of going about it at the moment.
Awesome. And then just one final question to end, and just to wrap up, in a kind of single sentence, and it could be a paragraph if you need to. What would you think would make you excellent in the area of kind of making digital human?
Yeah, I think it's be passionate about what connects with people, and understand it. I mean, there was a great campaign that went out around Christmas from Disneyland Paris.
Yeah. And
instead of showing the the usual pictures of family, all of that, which everybody's kind of almost become immune to, they told us whose kind of aspirational individual was Donald Duck. And it tells the story of all of it. It's on YouTube. It's brilliant. And at the end of it, he meets Donald Duck and at Disneyland, which is lovely. And I think if you can see how you can shape that and understand what connects, what resonates with people for any product or service, I think that that's a really important thing, but also read a variety of books. I think you've got everything from emotional intelligence, creating customer experiences, how to write compelling stories, and I think just being open to different ideas and opinions, and ultimately compelling content underpins everything in marketing. So. I think it'd be understanding what motivates people and be good at creating content.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much, Rob. I know you're a busy guy, so I appreciate the time.
No, I appreciate this as well, Andy. It's good to chat to you.
Cheers. Right. Thanks, Rob.
Cheers.
Cheers.